At 8:22 in the evening on July 15, 2024, emergency services in Melbourne received a call that would shake the city to its core. A frantic voice from a luxury home in Brighton reported an unthinkable tragedy. By sunrise, what appeared to be a terrible accident would reveal itself as one of Australia's most haunting murder cases. When police arrived at 52 Bayside Terrace, they discovered Marcus Chin, a 47-year-old property developer, floating motionless in his infinity pool. Standing nearby, drenched and trembling from what seemed like a failed rescue attempt, was his wife Sarah, just 29 years old. Beside her stood Dev Kapoor, 33, an employee who lived in the property's guest quarters. Welcome to Crime Canvas, where we examine the human stories behind the headlines. If you're joining us for the first time, please take a moment to subscribe. We bring you cases that reveal not just what happened, but why it happened, and what we can learn from these heartbreaking moments in time. That night, as police secured the scene, no one could have imagined how a simple workplace arrangement had transformed into a story of loneliness, desperation, and choices that would destroy multiple families across 2 continents. Marcus Chin didn't inherit his fortune. Born to a carpenter in western Melbourne, he started with a single van and 2 workers in 1996. By 2024, Chin Property Developments had transformed skylines across Australia and Southeast Asia, employing over 900 people and generating revenues exceeding $450 million annually. His specialty was luxury residential towers, with recent expansion into Malaysia's growing urban markets. But business success came at a heavy personal cost. The same relentless drive that built his empire became a force of control in his private life. Security cameras monitored every corner of his Brighton estate. His staff reported his activities to Sarah throughout each day. Former employees spoke carefully about his brilliance, but also mentioned his harsh temper and demanding nature. Marcus met Sarah in 2019 when she worked as a coordinator in his office. Within 8 months, the quiet woman with a fine arts degree was wearing his engagement ring. The 17-year age gap raised questions among friends, but Marcus never concerned himself with outside opinions. By 2024, they lived in a waterfront mansion overlooking Port Phillip Bay, but neighbors rarely saw Sarah outside alone. Her life had become defined by the walls around her. Meanwhile, halfway across the world in New Delhi, Dev Kapoor was building a reputation as an engineering talent. Raised in a middle-class family that gave everything for his education, Dev graduated at the top of his class from Delhi University. His innovative structural designs caught international attention, including from Marcus Chin, who was seeking expertise for his Malaysian projects. When Marcus offered Dev a 2-year contract in Melbourne, it seemed like destiny opening a door. The salary was triple what he earned in Delhi, the visa offered a pathway to permanent residency, and the international experience would set his entire career trajectory on fire. His parents wept with joy when he shared the news. Their son was achieving dreams they had never dared to imagine for themselves. Dev arrived in Australia in February 2024. Grateful beyond words and eager to prove his worth, Marcus installed him in the guest house on the property. The arrangement seemed generous, making Dev feel welcomed while keeping him available for late-night work sessions on urgent projects. The young engineer threw himself into his work with complete dedication, bringing fresh perspectives and solutions that saved millions on the Kuala Lumpur Gateway development. The first company gathering at the Chin home happened in April 2024. As Dev explained his reinforcement technique to senior staff, he noticed Sarah across the room, listening with real curiosity. When she asked technical questions that even Marcus struggled to answer, Dev felt something unexpected. Someone who actually saw him as more than just a useful resource. Over the following weeks, Dev's initial gratitude toward Marcus began to curdle. In meetings, Marcus presented Dev's ideas as his own innovations. When clients praised the designs, Marcus accepted their compliments without acknowledgement of their true origin. "Your job is to make me look good," Marcus told Dev privately one afternoon. "That's exactly why I brought you here." While Dev wrestled with professional disappointment, Sarah faced her own quiet disillusionment. The exciting life she had imagined with a successful husband had become elegant isolation. Marcus controlled their social calendar, monitored her spending, and dismissed her suggestions to return to her art career as impractical hobbies. Her daily routine consisted of fitness sessions, managing the household and waiting for Marcus to return home, often well past midnight. As autumn approached, 2 lonely people trapped in the orbit of a controlling man began to notice each other differently. Neither could have predicted where their connection would lead, or the devastating price they would eventually pay for seeking freedom. What started as casual conversation transformed gradually. After the April gathering, Dev and Sarah began exchanging small observations when they crossed paths on the property. A comment about the garden. A question about Indian architecture. Nothing that would raise concerns. Their first real conversation happened in Marcus's home office. Dev was returning blueprints late one evening when he noticed Sarah alone, studying a book of contemporary South Asian art. "You like Hussein's work?" he asked, surprised to see her examining the artist's paintings. "I wrote my graduate thesis on artists challenging traditional forms," she replied. "But Marcus calls it pretentious. Says art is just expensive decoration for people who want to appear cultured." That single conversation opened something between them. They discovered shared passions for literature, architecture, and film that Marcus dismissed as wastes of time. Dev found himself staying longer after dropping off documents, their discussions flowing naturally from professional topics to personal interests. Dev initially maintained strict boundaries. His traditional upbringing emphasized respecting marriage and honoring employers. Each night he would return to the guest house and video call his parents in Delhi, their pride in his Australian success reinforcing his determination to remain professional. But Sarah's isolation resonated with his own loneliness in a foreign country, far from everything familiar. The shift began subtly. Sarah started appearing wherever Dev worked on the property, asking thoughtful questions about his projects. She remembered details about his family that he had mentioned weeks earlier. She brought him authentic masala chai she had specially ordered online, small gestures that made him feel seen in a way Marcus never bothered with. Their first boundary crossing happened in late May. Marcus had publicly berated Dev during a video conference, taking credit for his cost-saving design while simultaneously criticizing minor details. After the call ended, Sarah sent a text message. "That was completely unfair. Your work is exceptional." That first message opened a floodgate. Soon they were exchanging thoughts throughout the day. Book recommendations became life stories. Cultural observations became personal confessions. When Marcus worked late, which was most nights, they discussed their dreams, disappointments, and desires until 2 in the morning. "We're just friends," Dev told himself. "I'm helping someone who feels alone. Nothing inappropriate is happening here." If you're finding this story compelling, please subscribe to Crime Canvas. We tell these stories not to judge, but to understand how good people can make choices that lead to tragedy. In June, during a company event, when Marcus was occupied with investors, Sarah brushed past Dev in the hallway and pressed a folded note into his hand. Garden shed, 10 p.m. The property's old gardening shed had been converted to storage space that nobody used anymore. That night, they talked for hours without digital evidence, without fear of Marcus monitoring their messages through the home network. These secret meetings became their refuge. Twice weekly they would slip away to the garden shed, careful to arrive and leave separately. Still, they maintained physical distance, both aware of the line they hadn't yet crossed. That changed in early July when Marcus flew to Singapore for a 5-day business trip. Sarah invited Dev to the main house for dinner, ostensibly to discuss the Jakarta proposal. The professional pretense dissolved over wine as they shared stories of their childhoods, laughing and gradually moving closer on the sofa as midnight approached. "I've never felt this understood by anyone," Sarah said, her eyes holding his. When Dev finally kissed her, it felt inevitable, like something that had been building for months. The physical connection that followed was both tender and desperate, two lonely souls finding comfort in forbidden intimacy. The guilt hit Dev immediately afterward. He returned to the guest house at 3 in the morning, showered for nearly an hour, and sat motionless until dawn thinking about his parents, his upbringing, and the sacred trust he had violated. He drafted a message ending whatever had started between them, citing his principles and loyalty to Marcus. But he never sent it. Instead, they developed an elaborate system. Communications happened through an encrypted app with disappearing messages. They manufactured work reasons to be seen together. They developed coded language for arranging meetings. Dev learned the blind spots in the property's security cameras. Sarah tracked Marcus's schedule with careful attention. By September, their relationship had intensified beyond physical attraction. In stolen moments between Marcus's trips and late work nights, they created their own world within the walls of his estate. Dev shared his architectural dreams. Sarah showed him her hidden artwork. They cooked traditional Indian meals together when Marcus traveled. They planned impossible scenarios where they could be together openly. Their growing confidence led to dangerous risks. A lingering touch at a company event. Meaningful glances during dinner with Marcus present. Once they nearly collided with Marcus's car returning early from a meeting while they were walking together at a nearby beach. These close calls only intensified their bond. Each narrow escape felt like evidence that fate was protecting them. In October, after Marcus had publicly humiliated Dev during a client presentation, Sarah whispered the words that changed everything. We could leave. Start over somewhere else. The possibility hung between them, tantalizing and terrifying. I can't just abandon my career, Dev replied. My family depends on me. And your prenuptial agreement. We'd find a way, she insisted. You're brilliant. Any company would hire you. Reality crashed down when Dev consulted an immigration attorney, using the pretense of general advice. The brutal truth emerged. His work visa was specifically tied to Chin property developments. If he left the company, he would have 60 days to secure another sponsor or face deportation. With Marcus's influence throughout the industry, finding another Australian position would be nearly impossible. That night in the garden shed, as winter winds rattled the windows, Dev faced Sarah with the painful truth. My entire future depends on him. My visa, my career, my family's financial security. I'm trapped completely. Sarah took his hands, her expression darkening. Then we need to think differently about our problem. Neither realized their secret world was already crumbling. 4 days earlier, Marcus had noticed an unusual pattern in the security system. Camera 14, covering the path to the garden shed, had been going offline regularly. Always around the same times. Twice weekly. The clock was ticking on their hidden paradise. The beginning of the end came with a notification. On October 5th, Marcus was reviewing company documents on the home network when Sarah's tablet synced automatically. A message preview appeared briefly on his screen, a fragment of an intimate conversation not meant for his eyes. For 4 days Marcus said nothing. Instead, he installed monitoring software on Sarah's devices, recovered deleted messages, and reviewed months of security footage with methodical precision. He discovered the camera blind spots, the garden shed meetings, the pattern of late-night encounters during his business trips. Rather than exploding in rage, Marcus became eerily calm. He maintained his normal schedule, treated both Sarah and Dev with typical briskness, and gave no indication of his discovery. His response was calculated, strategic, the same approach that had built his empire from nothing. On October 9th, Marcus called Dev into his office for what seemed like a routine project review. As they discussed the Singapore contract, Marcus casually mentioned, "Loyalty is everything in business, wouldn't you agree? People who betray trust rarely succeed long-term." Dev maintained his composure, but his heart raced. "I've been thinking about your visa situation," Marcus continued, shuffling papers without looking up. "Immigration policies are tightening. One negative reference from a sponsor can lead to immediate review and potential deportation. Terrible system, really." The threat hung in the air, unspoken but unmistakable. "Your family must be so proud of the money you're sending home," Marcus added. "Supporting your sister's university fees, your parents' new flat. Quite the responsibility for someone your age." Dev felt physically ill. "Yes, sir. They've sacrificed everything for me." "Family reputation means everything in traditional communities," Marcus said, finally making eye contact. "I admire that about Indian culture. How devastating it would be if someone brought shame to a respectable family name." That evening, Dev received a text from his father in Delhi. "A Mr. Chin called about your performance review. Seemed concerned about your focus. Is everything okay, beta? He mentioned you might be distracted by personal issues." The message confirmed Dev's worst fears. Marcus knew everything and was systematically threatening his life from every angle. Professional reputation, immigration status, family relationships, all could be destroyed with a few phone calls. When Dev finally reached Sarah through their emergency communication method, she was already in a state of panic. "He accessed my tablet," she whispered, meeting him at midnight behind the pool house. "He's watching us, testing us. He changed the alarm codes this morning, restricted my access to accounts. This afternoon he asked if I thought the prenup's infidelity clause was fair. The prenuptial agreement was harsh. Infidelity would leave Sarah with nothing, not even the artwork she had created during their marriage. I can't go back to nothing, she said, tears streaming. And he'll destroy you completely." Dev had never felt so trapped. "Maybe I should return to India before this gets worse. I could find work in Delhi eventually, save enough." "He won't let us escape separately," Sarah interrupted. "He'll make sure you're deported in disgrace, your career ruined. He'll drain my accounts before I can file for divorce. You don't understand how vindictive he is." The silence that followed was heavy with unspoken thoughts. "There's only one way we can be together now," Sarah finally said, her voice hollow. "Only one way he won't destroy us both." For Dev, whose strict upbringing emphasized karma and moral integrity, even considering such an action was unthinkable. "I could never," he whispered. "No matter the consequences." But over the next week, as Marcus's psychological warfare intensified, the unthinkable gradually became thinkable. Marcus cut Dev's project access without explanation. He scheduled a meeting with immigration officials for visa review discussions. He made casual comments about contacting Delhi's engineering firms about an employee's ethical issues. Meanwhile, Sarah discovered Marcus had begun documenting her movements, building a case for the infidelity clause. He had frozen her personal accounts and removed her name from their joint credit cards. The psychological prison was becoming increasingly real. Trapped and desperate, they began discussing theoretical scenarios. Just talking, they told themselves. Just exploring options. "Marcus swims every night when he's home," Sarah mentioned during one hushed garden shed meeting. "Always alone, always after a few drinks." Dev's engineering mind involuntarily cataloged the information. The pool's electrical system had been on his renovation list. He knew its vulnerabilities, its outdated circuit protections. "He takes blood pressure medication," Sarah continued. "It causes dizziness sometimes, especially with alcohol." The plan came together slowly, each piece slotting into place like a terrible puzzle. Sarah researched insurance policies and inheritance laws. She learned that accidental death doubled the payout to $10 million. She discovered that without a documented infidelity claim, the prenup's restrictions wouldn't apply. Dev's initial moral horror gradually eroded under the constant stress of Marcus's threats. His family's welfare, his professional future, his very presence in Australia, all hung by a thread that Marcus was actively cutting. "We're not bad people," Sarah reassured him during their planning. "We're survivors backed into a corner by someone who abuses his power. This is self-defense, just with advanced planning." They spent 3 weeks creating the perfect accident. Dev identified how to temporarily modify the pool's electrical system to create a dangerous current, one that would leave minimal evidence and could be attributed to equipment failure. Sarah mapped Marcus's routine to the minute, identifying the optimal evening for their plan. They established their alibis carefully. Dev would be at a company dinner with colleagues until 9 in the evening with plenty of witnesses. Sarah would be on a video call with her sister until 8:30, establishing her location in the guest bedroom, far from the pool area. The modifications to the electrical system would be done days before, triggered by a remote mechanism that would leave no digital footprint. Most importantly, they planted evidence of Marcus's carelessness. Records of him postponing recommended pool maintenance, emails dismissing safety concerns, witness statements about his tendency to drink while swimming. The picture they created was of a preventable accident waiting to happen. By October 22nd, every detail was in place. As they finalized their plan in the garden shed, a security camera silently recorded their movements from a new angle Marcus had installed just days earlier. A camera whose existence they knew nothing about. On July 15th, the plan unfolded with mechanical precision. 4 days earlier, Dev had made the critical modifications to the pool's electrical system during routine maintenance, installing a remote trigger disguised as a standard component. That evening began normally. Marcus returned home at 6:30, irritable after difficult negotiations. Sarah had prepared his favorite meal and served the special reserve whiskey he saved for celebrations. "What's the occasion?" Marcus asked suspiciously. "I thought you deserved something nice after working so hard," Sarah replied, her voice steady despite her racing heart. The whiskey was mixed with a mild sedative that would increase his blood alcohol level and enhance the dizziness from his medication. Not enough to be detected in a standard toxicology report, but enough to slow his reactions. At 7:45, Marcus mentioned his nightly swim as Sarah had anticipated. She had already ensured Dev attended the company dinner downtown, giving him a public alibi miles away from the house. Sarah positioned herself in the guest bedroom for her scheduled video call with her sister, carefully timed to establish her location away from the pool area. At 8:12, through the bedroom window, Sarah watched Marcus enter the pool. She waited 5 calculated minutes, then activated the remote trigger from her hiding place. The device sent a surge through the modified wiring, creating an electrical current in the water. Not enough to trip the safety systems, but sufficient to cause disorientation and cardiac distress in someone already compromised by alcohol and medication. Through the window, she watched Marcus struggle briefly, his movements becoming erratic before he slipped under the water's surface. The entire episode lasted less than 3 minutes. Sarah waited another 12 minutes, long enough for the electrical current to dissipate completely and for any chance of resuscitation to pass. Then she began her performance. At 8:22, her panicked voice reached emergency services. "Please help. My husband is in the pool. He's not moving. I think he's drowning." The dispatcher instructed her to pull him from the water and begin CPR. Sarah's sobs became more frantic as she claimed to be struggling with his weight. "I can't lift him. Please hurry." While waiting for emergency services, she called Dev, her voice breaking with practiced hysteria. "Marcus is in the pool. Something's wrong. Come home now." When paramedics arrived at 8:36, they found Sarah kneeling beside the pool, soaking wet from her supposed rescue attempt, performing clumsy CPR on Marcus's motionless body. Despite their immediate intervention, Marcus Chin was pronounced dead at the scene at 8:51. Dev arrived just as police were securing the area. His genuine shock at seeing the scene provided the perfect reaction. The horror on his face wasn't entirely acted. The abstract discussion of killing had become concrete reality, and Marcus's lifeless body made the enormity of their actions undeniable. Detective Michelle Torres arrived at 9:45, assigned to the case because of a string of recent accidents in luxury homes. With 18 years on the force, Torres had a reputation for thorough investigation and attention to detail. At 43, she had seen enough domestic tragedies to know when something felt wrong. Her first impression supported the accident theory. The physical evidence matched the expected pattern for a drowning. An intoxicated man swimming alone, possibly suffering a medical episode, with no signs of struggle or foul play. But as Torres surveyed the scene, small inconsistencies began to emerge. "Mrs. Chin, what made you check on your husband?" Torres asked gently. "I just had a feeling something was wrong," Sarah stammered. "Woman's intuition, I suppose." Torres nodded sympathetically, but noted that the guest bedroom was on the opposite side of the house from the pool, too far to hear a splash through closed windows and doors. By morning, the investigation had shifted. A thorough inspection of the pool equipment revealed sophisticated tampering that couldn't be attributed to normal wear or random failure. "This wasn't an accident," the forensic engineer told Torres privately. "Someone with advanced technical knowledge designed this to look like equipment failure." Before you continue, I want to ask you to subscribe to Crime Canvas if you haven't already. We examine cases like this not for entertainment, but to understand how tragedies unfold and what we can learn from them. Within days, the digital forensics team recovered deleted messages between Dev and Sarah despite their use of encrypted apps. While they couldn't recover the content, the metadata showed a pattern of intense communication over several months, with a significant spike in the 3 weeks before Marcus's death. Most telling was security footage from a camera Sarah and Dev didn't know existed, showing them entering the garden shed together multiple times, always during Marcus's absence. 4 days after Marcus's death, Detective Torres requested another interview with Dev, this time alone at the station. The detective's approach was subtle, building rapport before confrontation. She spoke to him about family, about the pressures of living far from home, about the weight of expectations. Then she placed a folder on the table between them, opening it to reveal photos of the tampered pool equipment. "This modification requires specific knowledge that very few people would have," Torres said. "The kind of knowledge an electrical engineer with your qualifications would possess." Dev's hands trembled, but he remained silent. "I've spoken with your parents," Torres continued. "Your father mentioned how proud the entire family is of your achievements. The first in your community to work internationally." Tears formed in Dev's eyes. "In my experience," Torres said gently, "when two people commit a crime together, the one who speaks first usually receives consideration from the courts. The one who maintains the lie until the end bears the heaviest burden." She said it was the only way we could be free, Dev finally whispered, his resistance crumbling under the weight of cultural shame and mounting evidence. "But I never thought I would actually go through with it." Dev's confession unleashed a cascade of revelations. For 4 days he provided detailed statements about their relationship, the planning process, and the technical aspects of the murder. His testimony revealed both the mechanical details of the crime and the psychological manipulation that led him to participate. "I knew it was wrong," he told investigators. "But I couldn't see any other way out. Every night I called my parents, lying about my success while knowing I was betraying everything they taught me." As Dev cooperated, Sarah's behavior became increasingly erratic. When detectives confronted her with Dev's confession, she collapsed in theatrical sobs before quickly shifting to cold anger. "He's obviously lying to save himself," she insisted. "Marcus was abusive, controlling. Dev became obsessed with me, fantasized about us being together. When I rejected him, he must have decided to eliminate Marcus and frame me. Her performance might have been convincing if Detective Torres hadn't already uncovered her past. Before marrying Marcus, Sarah had been in a relationship with Robert Klein, a 56-year-old finance executive who died from an apparent medication overdose in 2018. As Klein's personal assistant, Sarah had been the sole beneficiary of his substantial life insurance policy. Though no charges were ever filed, the pattern was clear. The investigation uncovered more evidence. Sarah's personal laptop contained searches for undetectable poisons, accidents that looked natural, and electrical failures causing death, dating back to March 2024, weeks before Dev had even arrived in Australia. She was planning this before we ever met, Dev realized during his 7th interview. I wasn't her accomplice. I was her tool, chosen specifically because I had the technical knowledge she needed. The trial began in March 2025, captivating both Australia and India. Media coverage was relentless, framing the case as an international tragedy with cultural, class, and immigration dimensions. In court, their strategies differed sharply. Sarah claimed manipulation by both men, Marcus's controlling behavior and Dev's technical knowledge creating a prison she couldn't escape. Her defense portrayed her as a victim of circumstance, psychologically damaged by Marcus's emotional abuse and coerced by Dev's obsession. Dev, by contrast, accepted full responsibility while explaining the circumstances that led to his involvement. He described his initial moral objections, his fears for his family's welfare, and his gradual surrender to what seemed like the only escape. I knew it was wrong, he testified, his parents watching tearfully from the gallery. Nothing excuses taking a human life. I will carry this shame forever. The jury deliberated for 9 days before returning their verdict. Both were found guilty of first-degree murder, but with important distinctions. Dev's cooperation, genuine remorse, and secondary role earned him a 20-year sentence with possibility of parole after 14 years. Sarah, deemed the primary architect and showing no remorse, received life imprisonment with no possibility of parole for 30 years. For Dev's family in Delhi, the conviction brought devastating shame. His father suffered a heart attack upon hearing the verdict. His mother refused to leave their apartment for months. His sister withdrew from university, unable to face her classmates. In a gesture that surprised many, Marcus's brother established a support fund for Dev's family, acknowledging the manipulation that had contributed to the tragedy. 2 families have been destroyed, he told reporters. Marcus would want us to show compassion. The case prompted significant changes in Australia's skilled worker visa program, creating better protections for immigrant employees and emergency pathways for those facing exploitation or abuse. In his final statement before sentencing, Dev offered an insight that resonated with millions following the case. I came to Australia seeking opportunity and recognition. When I felt undervalued and trapped, I became vulnerable to someone who recognized my desperation. We make our worst decisions not in moments of hatred, but in moments when we can't see any other path forward. As he began serving his sentence, Dev established a remote mentoring program for engineering students in India, warning them about the ethical compromises that can destroy promising careers. His cautionary story became required discussion in professional ethics courses at Delhi University. Sarah showed no such growth. In prison interviews, she maintained her innocence despite overwhelming evidence, casting herself as the victim of cultural misunderstanding and bias. What began as a workplace connection had ended in destruction, leaving 3 families shattered across 2 continents. A reminder that the most dangerous decisions often begin with small compromises that gradually erode the boundaries between right and wrong. Thank you for watching Crime Canvas. If this story moved you, please subscribe to our channel. We tell these stories not to sensationalize tragedy, but to understand the human choices that lead to it, and to learn how we might recognize warning signs in our own lives. Share this with someone who values thoughtful examination of true crime. Until next time, stay safe and stay aware.